Well, hello everybody! Hi everyone. Man, it feels like it's been forever since I've been live with you guys. I think it's actually been a couple weeks, so my apologies. It's been a bit of a whirlwind for me, so I'm glad to be coming to you guys live tonight. And I know it's a different night for me, but I think I had mentioned last night in my post that I was out of town and was fortunate enough to go to a men's retreat this last weekend up in the mountains, and it was phenomenal. It was just absolutely amazing. And so I got home and had a couple other things I had to do, and okay, thank you. So I found out that you're reading my sign backwards. I apologize for that. I've been trying to figure this out. I'm going to make a note so I remember how to do it next time. But welcome. Glad you guys are here and joining me tonight on Facebook Live and for some conversation about bowtie living and what that means. And I'm excited, if you saw in my title for this, I wanted to talk a little bit about fear. We got a lot of stuff going on in our world today. Well, really, it only seems like one big thing going on in the world today, so I wanted to talk about that a little bit. But regardless, before we get to that, I did want to just kind of give everyone an update, and big shout out to those folks that came to my first event that I had last Sunday. Why me, why not? It was awesome. I think there was a lot of value that was received by the attendees, and I'm looking forward to doing that again and hope more of you can join us. But it was a lot of fun, and it was neat to put it together and to roll it out. And again, I think the people that came, from the feedback that I received, thought it was a great thing for them to attend, and have given me great feedback for the next one. So I'll be sharing more down the line here as I tend to put something together and when I'm going to hold the next event, and hopefully you guys can come. I am going to make some changes to it, nothing major, but there will be a few little changes to it. But the other thing that I'm going to do, and I'm just going to give you guys a little teaser, don't know when or exactly what it looks like or anything like that, but this place that I went to this last weekend for a retreat actually has the ability to host outside retreats, and I am going to be speaking with them about doing my own retreat coming up hopefully later this year, sometime in the summer, early fall, here hopefully in Colorado up in the mountains. And again, more information will come on that. Don't know what it looks like yet, but it was such a great experience, and something that I think I could take bowtie living and offer that same kind of a thing. So it was absolutely amazing. And again, thanks for everyone who came last week, and it was great. And I'm actually going to share, talking about fear, I'm going to share one of the experiences that I had this weekend up at the ranch and at the retreat that really goes to fear. And it was quite an interesting situation. It was actually, and I'll share this story and then I'll kind of talk a little bit about fear, but we started on Thursday night, so I got there kind of early or late afternoon on Thursday, and then we did some things, and then we did this kind of event where we were going to go through and do something. Well, of course, we didn't know exactly what that was, and it was a men's retreat, so it was all men, and the guy that was running the retreat has us all go outside, and so we're getting outside and we're talking, and we're talking about different things that we really want to gain from this retreat. And it was a Christian men's retreat, so there was us talking about what do we want to turn over to God, what do we want to give away, is there a fear, is there an apprehension, is there something that we maybe have going on in our lives currently that we're struggling with, what is it that we really want to just get rid of. And what's really interesting about that is I had written, before we went outside, I had been thinking about what I wanted to kind of work on this last weekend, and was there something kind of pulling at my heart that I felt like I really wanted to kind of dive into this weekend and really work on. And what I had written, actually in my book, this is our little journals that we had, and I actually wrote it right here, middle of the book, middle of the page, and what I wrote was the fear of the darkness. And I'm not going to go into a huge, long explanation about that, but I have had, really for a good portion of my life, and it's not an overpowering fear that happens all the time. It comes on at really weird times. And sometimes I'll wake up in the middle of the night and have this just overwhelming sense of darkness and fear and things just coming in on me. And there are times that I feel a presence that is just overwhelming and really encompassing. And there have been times where I've woken up literally in the middle of the night where I can't move because I feel like something is coming after me. It has me tied down, and it's going to take me out. And it is just a really crazy fear. There are other times that I have this fear that I'm going to be, I'm going to get to this fear of falling here in a minute, but that I'm going to just be flung and really, really struggle with that. And again, it's not all the time. It's not something that limits me in what I do typically. It comes on just out of the blue. But it's just this horrible, dark sense of impending doom is really a great way to think about it. That something significant and major is going to happen to me. There's no one else in it. There's just this like a presence. And it's really, really freaking scary. So I decide that's what I want to release this last weekend. Again, that was the first night. There were all kinds of other things that happened over the weekend that I'm not going to get into tonight. Just will tell you that it was unbelievable. So we go outside and we're standing in this group and we're all around this circle, and the leader says, okay, what I want you guys to do is take out your journals and you're going to write what that is on there. So I, of course, write the fear of darkness. And when I say darkness, I know what it means. It's not like turning out the lights, that kind of darkness. So I write that down. Well, he then says, well, what we're going to do is they have this huge ranch and this property, and what we're going to do is we're going to walk down to the base of the ranch, and we're going to cross the threshold of when you come into the ranch. They have this big, beautiful sign welcoming you to their ranch. And we're going to go down there, and there's a fire, and we're going to throw these pieces of paper into the fire to release this. And then we're going to cross back over the threshold and really just try to release it up to God. And to release it out of us and try to get rid of this. Well, that's all great, and it sounds awesome, and some of you may have done an experience like that before. And I've done similar type things, throwing things in the fire, or shredding or burning letters, whatever it might be. You may have experienced something like that before. But what was really the most pivotal point for me was the fact that we had to walk. It was night. We're in the mountains. It's dark. And we have to walk down this road where it's snow-covered. It's slippery. The weather had been pretty nice up there, so some of the snowpack had turned to ice on the road. And I've shared a little bit about my injury that I had, my accident that I had almost 3 years ago, where I fell. And in this fall, I actually, my wrist got cut on some metal down to the bone. I was literally dying out, or bleeding out on a rooftop. I'm not going to go into that. But needless to say, that created a little bit of PTSD with me and falling. So now here I am. I have to walk down in the dark on this slippery road and have to go down and go in this pack of people not being able to see. So not only am I walking to, turn over this fear, but now I'm having to walk through fear of my own just to get there. And that's what I want to kind of talk to you guys about tonight, about fear, because we have all this stuff going on with the coronavirus right now. And I'm not going to minimize it. It's something that we have to pay attention to. I joke a lot about it. I think that I made a joke before I got on Facebook Live tonight because I think that there's some rational fears out there that people have, and I think there's some really irrational fears that people have out there. Why is it, and you'll see all kinds of memes on Facebook and everywhere else, why is it we're buying all the toilet paper? Why is it we're buying bottled water? Our faucets are still going to work even if we're quarantined. So I think there's a big difference between fear that's rational and that we really should pay attention to, and then there's irrational fear. So this fear I have of the darkness, what I call the darkness, It's not the dark outside dark, but the fear of the darkness, or my fear of falling because of my accident. They are very real, but are they really rational? And I can tell myself in my head, don't be afraid of that, don't be afraid of that, don't worry about the impending doom. And I can tell myself those things, but that doesn't mean that they're not still there. And I think with everything that's going on, and we can't even say in our towns, in our cities, in our states, in our country, it's in the world. It's crazy. They just shut down, what is it, Italy or something today, where they basically shut down the country because of this. And I get it. It's something that has to be dealt with, and is something that is happening to our world. But I think, for me personally, I have to be careful that I don't get swept up into these irrational thoughts about this, but really looking at the world objectively and my days objectively. So does that mean I should wash my hands more often? Absolutely. Does that mean that if I'm going to go somewhere where there's a big group of people that I need to be more aware of it? Absolutely. But does that mean that I shouldn't go to church on Sunday? Maybe. I don't know. And maybe there's some people, if I'm in my 80s, my mother-in-law just had surgery and for hip replacement. It wasn't a big deal, but so she's 80, and we have more concern for her about what she's going to do. She was talking about going bowling on Wednesday. Well, we're like, well, should you really go to a public place, put your hand in, other places that other people's hands have been? Those are things that are objectively looking at our experiences that we have every day. But what do we do with all these other things that live inside of us when it comes to fears? Do we allow those fears to overcome and overtake us? Or do we look that fear in the face and say, I'm going to walk through it just like I did Thursday night? Thursday night I could have said, I can't do this. And I could have gone to the leader and said, dude, this is really hard for me. I have a lot of fear. And I literally had to take each step very consciously. But you know what? I chose to do that. And I've shared with you guys in one of my other segments about the definition of courage that I like. And courage is not the absence of fear, but it's walking through fear or walking with fear. However you want to think about that. And that's what I had to do on Thursday night. And so I think the same thing is true with where we're at in our world today. There's lots of bad stuff that happens. It's an unfortunate thing that now we have to worry about mass shootings at schools or at malls and movie theaters and all these other places. It's bad things that we have, it's bad that we have all these things that happen that are not in our control. But that's the key. Those are not the things that are in our control. What's in my control? My control is to wash my hands more often, be aware of my surroundings and where I'm at, making different choices if I feel that necessary. If I'm high risk, in the high risk category, I should probably look at making a different choice about that. But that doesn't mean I have to stop living. Doesn't mean I have to stock up on toilet paper. And you know what? Maybe I'll come to regret ever even saying that I'm not going out and buying a bunch of bottled water and a bunch of toilet paper. Okay? Maybe I will. And if I do, I gotta live with that. Nobody else has to. But I don't want that to define what I do today or how I live today. I could take this fear of falling that I have, that whether it's rational or irrational doesn't matter. It's still a fear that I have and does affect me. If I'm out and walking and it's a snowy or slippery or icy surface, I have some fear. Now I can let that limit me in my choices. Or I can understand that I have that fear and I can still go around and go on living even with that fear inside me. I have a lot of, things that I've worked through over the last few years as far as fear and thoughts and negativity and all of those things. And I've been able to work through those. And that's what I love about Bowtie Living, and the things that I got to share in the event that I held last week was really how do we look at these things with a different set of glasses? How do we see these differently and really more objectively rather than subjectively in how they affect us? And it takes a lot of work, and it's not easy. And there are times that I have to walk through that fear. There are times that I'm put into a situation where I'm like, oh, this sucks, this sucks, this sucks. But I also know that just like on Thursday, when I was walking down that driveway and walking down that hill on that icy snow-packed surface in the dark, for me, I knew that I had God with me. I also knew that there are other people around. And those were the things that I looked at. Even though I still had struggled with it inside my head and my heart was racing faster than it normally would, even though all those things were happening, I still was able to do that. That doesn't mean that it's easy. And some things that we walk through are way harder than others. But we're living in this world right now and today to where there are so many things that are thrown at us all the time. You're like, well, wait, I don't have choices. We have all these things. All this stuff is happening, but we do have a choice. We were talking about that earlier tonight. We're like, we just need to turn the news off because it drives me crazy for a lot of reasons. But one of them is this whole thing. I mean, how can the stock market crash 2,000 points today? Because people are getting sick. I get it. It's a big deal. It's much bigger than that. But I was mentioning earlier that, in the grand scheme of things, the number of people that are going to be affected by this, we don't know. And I can't sit here and tell you that I know. But without knowing that, why are we creating this huge state of fear out there? When really what we should be just doing is talking about proper hygiene. Do we do the right things? Both my boys deal with the public every day as far as their job goes. One is in college, and then he also has a job that he works with the public. Should they be completely freaked out and scared? Well, I don't think so. I think they just have to be more aware, more conscious, and take maybe some different precautions. But that doesn't mean that they have to live in fear. That doesn't mean that I had to last Thursday say, I'm sorry, you know what, I can't do this. Because the thing about fear is there's irrational fear and there's rational fear. And that's our choice in how we are going to internalize that. There's also perceived fear and real fear. And, real fear is you're in the middle of, maybe you're driving down the highway and all of a sudden you see an accident and, there's a chance that you might end up in that accident. I had a situation a couple years ago. I'm literally driving down the interstate and I see this guy and he comes flying up, and it's morning rush hour. He comes flying up on the very right shoulder and literally crosses 4 lanes right behind me and almost clips me, but then loses control and causes a huge accident behind me. Well, in that moment of time, I had very rational fear. It was not perceived. It was very real. But that doesn't mean I'm going to stop driving. Again, we have to look at these things objectively and then determine what can we do to work around them, work with it, walk through it. Walk through that fear. So my encouragement to everybody tonight is to look what's going on, be aware of it, change the things that you need to do, but be careful that we're not being irrational about what is going to happen or what may happen, because quite honestly, we don't know. In the end, we don't know. We don't know how many people are going to be affected. We don't know how big this is going to be. We don't know how small this is going to be. We don't know that they don't come up with some sort of a treatment for it tomorrow. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm just saying we don't know. But yet we live in this world where we want to take all these precautions and all these things. I mean, they're shutting down schools, they're canceling conferences, they're doing all these major things. And some of it is probably rightly so. Because we do want to be safe. And I'm not saying they shouldn't do it or they should do it. I'm just saying these are the decisions that are being made about something that the control we have is the control we should take. And that control means washing our hands more often, being aware of the circumstances we're putting ourselves into, maybe making different choices about where we're going. I was talking to my wife earlier tonight, and she had friends that flew with their brand new baby on Friday. And, they could have been completely frozen in fear and said, I'm not going to go to this event that they were going to, or they chose to go. and everything was just fine. And so I think we have to be very aware of that and very just conscious about what those decisions and those things that we can control are. And then take control of those. The rest of it, we just have to let go. We have to let go and let things run its course. Because fear is a very, very powerful emotion that we have. And, I'm grateful that I have fear because it works for me when it needs to. But there are other times that I have to really look fear in the face, just like I did on Thursday night, and say, I'm going to walk through this. And again, it wasn't a life-threatening fear, or there wasn't anything like that was going to happen. But in my head and in my heart during that period of time, it was something that I had to work through. And so we have those same choices each and every day. And regardless if it's the coronavirus or if it's something else, there will always be things that are going on in our world. We live in a broken world, and there's bad people and there's bad things that happen. It's what we live in. And we can choose to make a world that still we want to live in and be a part of and go out into, or we can choose to become hermits and hide out in our houses or move up to the mountains off the grid. Which was actually a side note, very interesting, is that where we're at, I had no cell phone service, like none. And they actually had asked us to turn our phones off the whole time that we were there. And it was an interesting experiment in the fact that outside of being able to call home and talk to my wife, there was, I didn't really miss it. It was actually pretty cool. I didn't really miss it. There were times I missed having the camera. That was probably the biggest thing, just not having a camera. But they took pictures and they promised that they would get them to us and that kind of thing. So that was actually an interesting experience to have to go through, because I can't remember the last time I didn't have my phone for, a few days. It wasn't even that long, right? 2.5, 3 days. That would actually cause a lot of fear for probably some of you. But it's funny how we have become so connected to those devices. So yeah, I had nothing. Didn't even know. Sunday finally actually I'd heard about the first, because when I left there were no cases of coronavirus here in Colorado. When I opened my phone up on Sunday, there was. So I was like, oh, look at that. But it didn't change how I thought about it. It just it made it more local. That's all it was. So anyways, that's what I got for you guys tonight. I miss getting on these with you guys. I promise to get back into a regular routine. And thanks again to those of you that were able to attend my event that I had, the Why Me, Why Not event last Sunday. Be on the lookout. I will be having another one here coming up. Don't know when. Don't know if it's in the next couple weeks, next month. I'm not exactly sure, but one of the things that I will be trying to put together is my own retreat in the next few months. It's months down the road, but did want to throw that out there for you. So until then, please be safe. Please be kind to one another. I love you all, and thanks so much. Will I am the Bowtie Sober Guy. Peace out.